Well, hello. Actually, let me get my handy dandy mic connected here. All right. I think you guys can hear me. If you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up in the chat? That would be so kind of you. If you can hear me, you give me a thumbs up. I'm using my fancy podcasting mic I got with as a gift. If you can hear me, it'd be great to give me a thumbs up. So, welcome. So today, we're going to be talking about 3 things to stop doing in order to stop the bleeding in your marriage. So, for me, I realized that either I was trying to make my marriage better, and this is, years ago, either I was trying to make my marriage better or I was trying to self-preserve. Neither one of them seemed helpful or like they were really working, but I was just taking turns, trying to fix my marriage, getting disappointed, getting hurt, getting frustrated, and then self-preserving until I guess I got inspired again to try to make my marriage better. And so in my mind, I'm like, clearly she's the problem. I'm trying to pursue her. I'm trying to get her to speak to me respectfully. I'm trying to increase the fun. Like I want it to be like it was when we first met. And I just felt like every time I tried, we'd make a little progress and then we'd hit this wall where I'm just like, yep. Oh yeah, I forgot. You don't like me anymore. Yeah, I forgot about that. And I'm not sure I like you either. And so we're constantly in this place where I can't make any effort without seeing some kind of return. And if I don't see some kind of return, it actually makes me check out. And so actually, let me go ahead and mention everybody in the comments here so you guys know we're live. Everyone. Oh, looks like I can't tag in this. That's everyone. Okay. Well, I'll do it from my computer then. And so, this really affected me and it caused us to go in this cycle. And I think the part that was hardest for me, I don't think this was the same for my wife, but what was hardest for me is that I felt like I was the one that wanted the relationship to be better. So I felt like I was the one putting in the effort and I wasn't getting it returned. And that's probably the thing that bothered me the most, is that I'm like, how can you not want to make our marriage better when we both know it sucks? Like, you committed to this. How can you just sit back, see our marriage rotting away, and just almost be like, okay with it? And so that was something that really bothered me. And I can admit that absolutely got to me. It absolutely caused me to want to be disconnected. It caused me to want to find other places where I would be appreciated, wanted, celebrated instead of tolerated. It made me want to find spaces where I could get what I needed instead of begging, almost feeling like I'm begging my spouse to like me. I'm begging my spouse to appreciate me when there's other places that they do like me. They appreciate me. And I don't even have to perform. They just think I'm great. And then I go home and I hear, and I'm like, why am I even here? Why am I here in a marriage where you're supposed to be my person? You're supposed to be the person that I feel the most respected by, the most loved by. And instead, what I experience is the worst things I could experience. You know, the worst thing you can experience in a relationship is to have the things that you want specifically be taken away. It's one thing if you don't, you know, if I'm not a person that really likes watches, right? So my wife, she gets me a watch or she doesn't, it's not a big deal. But if I specifically am like, yeah, I just love, you know, physical touch. I enjoy when, you know, just getting some, you know, my wife sometimes, you know, she scratch my head or touch my back, or when she's walking past, you know, just touch me. My wife used to smack my butt a lot, which was very aggressive. So we had to talk about that. But, you know, if I'm somebody that's something I really enjoy, and I go home and that's the thing that she just won't do. She just won't touch me. She sees me walking by, no touch. She sees me in the kitchen, she walks by me, no touch. Just nothing. And it's been communicated that that's the thing that I want, that that's something I really appreciate, that that's something that I need. And so, you know, that's what creates that place of, what the heck is going on? You're the person that knows me the best. And you're the person that's supposed to meet these needs. And you're the one choosing not to. And I can't make you. And so that leaves us in this really tough space. And I'm just going to make this post here real quick. 3, 2. Okay, so I just made a quick post so everyone knows that we are in here. So let's go ahead and start. The 3 things you need to stop doing today in order to stop the bleeding in your marriage. And I'm going to tell you now, these things that I'm going to say, they're not easy things, because they're not things that other people would tell you, oh yeah, this is what you should do. These are things that other people would say, no, don't do that. This person is supposed to X, Y, and Z. This person is supposed to, and they have this list of things. And ultimately, that's the reason that that your marriage is so challenging. Your marriage is so hard. And so the first thing is to stop expecting your spouse to change. And even saying that, it feels heavy. Because you married this person and you wanted them to be your safe place. You wanted them to be your best friend. You wanted them to be the person that you enjoy the most spending time with, and they enjoy spending time with you. And when you realize that that's not the reality of the marriage that you're in, you either want to fight for that, or you want to figure out ways to close off your heart so that doesn't hurt you so much. But neither one of those give you a better marriage. And so there's a third option. But the third option sounds insane. Stop expecting your spouse to change. So here's the big perspective shift on this. Your expectations, and you tell me in the comments if you agree with this or disagree, because I have no problem with being wrong today. Your expectations, here's my theory, your expectations have caused you more pain than your spouse has. Your expectations have caused you more pain than your spouse has. If I didn't expect my spouse to meet me halfway, if I thought to myself in this marriage, you know what? Jesus, he loved people. Jesus took the first step. Jesus was the initiator. Jesus always gave more. to the people he was loving that they gave him back. And so Jesus is like, you know what? I'm just going to love you because I want to. It's a choice that I'm making, whether you love me back or not. And so you expecting your spouse to meet you halfway, that they should want to be a better spouse, that they should want to be more understanding or respectful. These shoulds are the real cause of your pain. Of course, it's uncomfortable when you guys are trying to figure out how to communicate and it's not working well, right? It's a problem you solve. But the fact that it's something that you need and that they're supposed to do for you, that's the part that makes it so painful, is that I expect you to be the kind of spouse that meets this need for me, and you're not. And so it's the expectation. If I remove the expectation, if I stopped expecting my spouse to meet my needs or to change, then I would stop the bleeding for myself. And if I stop the bleeding for myself, then I'll probably stop trying to hurt them back or keep things even and watch their behavior to see if they're putting as much effort in as I am, to see if I need to scale back. Like, that is never going to produce a better marriage. So the first thing, stop expecting your spouse to change. If that sounds crazy, or if you love it, put it in the comments. The second thing, stop fighting to get your needs met. This also probably sounds crazy. And so that's why we're talking about it. Because in order to stop the bleeding, think about it this way. The reason that our marriage is bleeding is because every time we try, it doesn't work. Every time we try to meet each other, every time we try to put behind us what's happened and come back together and make things better, it doesn't work. We end up back in that cycle again where it's like, nope, you're still the same old this, that, or the other, right? And so we got to find a third option. The option of trying or running, distancing ourselves. There's a third option. And the third option is stop fighting your spouse to get your needs met. Now, I know this is hard, and I know you want your needs met, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, to be honest with you, I am the needier one in my marriage. Very interesting to admit as a husband, but it's true. Jesus and I celebrate it. Jesus says, you're needy, and I love it. And I'm like, that's awesome. And so me being needy, me wanting my needs met, there's nothing wrong with that. But when I'm fighting to get my needs met, I'm actually, it's something I call in the coaching that I do, I call it a twisted desire. So there's something I want from you, and the way that I'm going about getting it actually means I won't get it, and I'll get some pain as well. The way I'm going about it will make sure I don't get what I want, and I end up hurt afterwards. And you tell me if that sounds familiar. That for some reason, the way I'm going about it, it actually ends up worse for me than if I just had never asked for it at all. And so, you know, one of the phrases I came up with, because I just felt like this was so true to my heart, is, if I don't make you meet my needs, who's going to make you do it? And the thing about that mindset that we have to adjust is, if I'm fighting somebody to get my needs met, I'm never going to have a relationship that I enjoy. I don't want to have to make somebody meet my needs. Does that feel romantic to you? That doesn't feel like intimacy. But oftentimes we fight to get our needs met because we're afraid that we can't survive without getting our needs met. And that's where the desperation comes in. That's where the thoughts of, maybe this isn't the right person for me. Maybe I'm not supposed to be married to this person. Maybe we're just not a good fit. But I'll tell you this, the person you picked, that's the person for you. That's how you know it's the right person. It's because you chose them. And so at this point, we're looking at, what's the marriage I have? Not the marriage I want. What's the marriage I have? And how do I adjust to that? Because right now, my heart is set on this other picture of what my marriage can be. And that expectation is causing my heart to break, it's causing me to want to disengage. And so, don't you want your spouse to love to meet your needs? That only happens in a marriage that has a culture of unconditional love. And so I've heard a lot of definitions of unconditional love, but there's one that I heard that I've used ever since. I'll never let go of this definition of unconditional love because it makes so much sense. Unconditional love is where I can fully love you without needing anything from you. As long as you need things from your spouse, your love is conditional. I love you based on what you do for me. I love you based on what you don't do for me. Like my love, it moves, it ebbs and flows. And that is not unconditional love. Our love should be perfected in our marriage. There's no place that's going to test our ability to love more than the relationship where we're supposed to get the most out of it. That's the thing we've heard. I'm supposed to get the most out of this relationship. Not the most growth, not the most challenge. But I believe for some reason I'm supposed to get the most love. I'm supposed to get the most, my needs supposed to be met. I'm supposed to feel in love and crazy in love all the time. And that's a product of this process. And if we never go through this process, we never end up having that kind of love, which sucks. To just go through a bunch of pain, a bunch of struggle with nothing to show for it. But that's what happens when we're making, even if you put in your best effort, if it's the wrong way, it will never work. A lot of people have put in so much effort, great-hearted effort, and haven't really seen a lot of results. And so if we're using the wrong technique, no matter how hard we try it, we're never going to get the results we want. And so, I want you to just imagine what a marriage with unconditional love looks like, where I don't need anything from you. I'm choosing to depend on you. I don't feel like I want to force you to meet my needs. I'm not trying to pressure you into it. I, find a way to get my needs met. And that's one of the things that we go through in my program that's made the biggest difference for my clients is they need to find a way to get those needs met so that all that pressure doesn't lay on their spouse. When all that pressure is on your spouse just can't meet it. It's impossible. You feel like it's reasonable because your brain's different than theirs. They feel like it's impossible. And so that's what causes tension. If I'm putting the weight of the world on my spouse's shoulder to meet my needs and they're not sure they can meet them, why try? Why would they risk not being able to come through for you and feeling like a failure as a spouse because all the weight of meeting their needs is all on them? I mean, that's some heavy stuff right there. And so, that's a big part of the story with my wife. It's once the pressure was off of her to be the wife I dreamed that she would be, she became that and more. Because my life and my happiness wasn't depending on her coming through for me. Once she had the freedom to be able to try and fail at meeting my needs. And she knew I wouldn't turn on her. I wouldn't get mad at her. I wouldn't tell her, I can't believe you don't know me better than this by now. Like all the different things I could have done and could have said. When she saw that I was able to just say, hey, babe, you tried. Here's what went well. Here's what didn't. How did it feel for you? She's like, you're being so nice about this, And so I said, yeah, the pressure's off. Like that's not my MO anymore. My MO is no longer to try to pressure you into meeting my needs. And when the pressure's off, the love and the intimacy can flow. But when the pressure's on, there's no room for intimacy. Really hard thing. And so the third thing, just to go through the first two again, stop expecting your spouse to change. Your expectations have caused you more pain than your spouse ever has. 2, stop fighting to get your needs met. Unconditional love is where I don't need anything from the other person. Because the only way my love is unconditional. I don't need anything from the person, and whatever they do give me is a cherry on top. And then the third thing is stop believing that you should have all the answers. Stop believing that you should have the answers. This is your first time trying to figure out something like this. You've never been in the situation that you're in right now before. You're a novice at it. You're an amateur. And that's not something you should feel bad about. You shouldn't expect that you should have all the answers. You've never tried to figure out how to have an amazing, intimate marriage at this stage of your relationship before. You're figuring it out. Give yourself a break. Give yourself some grace. You're trying the best you can. The things you're trying, they might not be working, but I want to tell you, take a deep breath and remind yourself, we've never done this part before. It's okay that we're struggling with it. We're not supposed to be good at this part yet. If we were good at this part, we wouldn't be here. So because we are, we've got to figure this out. Something that somebody said that really stuck out to me was, when I'm a great employee and I become a boss, it doesn't mean I'm a good boss. When I was an employee, I was great at doing the job. Being a boss now means I have a brand new job. I'm responsible for everybody else and their success. So I'm working a brand new job. I shouldn't expect myself to immediately come in and have the same kind of success that I had when I was an employee. I just got a new position. I've got to learn it. I need to give myself some grace and some time to learn a brand new thing. And so, love is not enough. Once the fire starts to fizzle and the connection between you and your spouse starts to go cold, you need an expert at starting fires that is committed to help you learn how to keep the fire stoked for life. I want you to have the confidence that you know with your spouse specifically how to get that fire going again and keep it going. That when you see things start to get shaky, you know exactly what to do to get things back on track. Get yourselves back connected quickly. My wife and I, so usually our marriage meetings, which in my program, I share with you the whole marriage meeting, how we do it. I show you how to do it. I coach you through doing it so that you can add this as a new part of your relationship where you can stay intimately connected with each other instead of trying to figure out why it's not there. You know, to be honest, people say a lot of times that date night is something you should regularly do. And I'm not arguing with that. But date night doesn't give you connection and intimacy. Date night gives you an opportunity for connection and intimacy. But what I give you is actually tools that help you to have connection and intimacy beyond go out somewhere where your kids aren't, where there's food and drinks and everything will be great. It's like, no, I still don't like them out there, or at least I'm not sure. And so my wife and I hadn't had our meeting for a couple weeks because I had an event at the same time. And we started to feel that slip happening in our relationship. And so I was like, hey, emergency meeting. So we had the meeting that night and we went through our normal agenda. The agenda, I'll let you guys know what it is. I'll even share with you here because I've had people try it and it actually made their marriage worse because they didn't build in the things in their marriage that they needed to make the marriage meeting work. They were like, it made our marriage worse. We've been mean to each other all week. And I said, it's because you got to build up to that. You don't just start having a marriage meeting and it makes your marriage better. But the thing we do is we start with gratitude, something that the other person's done over the last week that we're just grateful for. And then we go to emotional connection. We share something that we felt strong emotion about in the last week and the other person just listens. They just listen to hear us, not to respond, not to tell us advice or anything. We're trying to connect our hearts. That's the hard thing. And so we listen to each other. We share with each other kind of what we're hearing from our heart, what we're feeling is the other person sharing. Super easy. My wife was actually the one that wasn't great at this at first. And now she's a pro. She can teach you guys how to do it. Because once you start doing it, you realize, oh my gosh, this is making our marriage better. Of course I want to do this. It doesn't matter whether I'm love my emotions or come from my emotions or not. If you're telling me that doing this once a week, it takes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and it makes our marriage better, I'll absolutely do that. And so, and then we go through kind of what our topic is for the day. And so we talk about what's a need I can meet for you this week. And then I share what a need is I can meet for them this week. And so we share with each other a need that we're going to go all out to meet that next week. And it's like, man, if I knew every week that my wife was going to have a meeting with me to commit to meeting one of my needs the way I need it met, I mean, you tell me where there's a better marriage than that. People who are dating have all this chemistry. They don't have that. I tell you that. That's a system that'll make your marriage great. And so we hadn't had it for a while. And when we had the meeting, we realized, man, there's a bunch of stuff going on. And if we didn't have this meeting, we actually would have never talked about it until things blew up. Isn't that what happens for you guys? Sometimes in your marriage, you don't talk about stuff until it's bad. And you don't have a system to make sure that these needs, these conversations are happening so that you guys can stay in a place where you're positively connected. Instead, you wait until it's a negative connection. It's a bomb. It's boom. And then we're repairing our relationship. And so there's too much riding on you getting this right for you to not give yourself the best chance that you can to make your marriage better than ever. And so, quickly to go over again what our points were today. Stop expecting your spouse to change. Ouch. I even heard saying it just now. Stop fighting to get your needs met. You need another source. And then 3, stop believing that you should have the answers. In order to stop the bleeding in your marriage, there's got to be somebody that says, all right, this ends with me. I'm not going to be the one contributing to us feeling disconnected, to us feeling like I'm in danger when I'm around you because you're not going to protect me and keep my heart safe. That you're going to attack me when I don't do something right, or when I'm not perfect, or when I don't perfectly do the thing you want me to do. You're going to disrespect me if I do something that doesn't look the way that you think it's supposed to look. If I'm not meeting the standard for who I'm supposed to be as your husband or wife. And so in order to stop the bleeding, the first thing I have to do is stop my own bleeding. I have to slow the bleeding for myself and stop causing the other person to bleed. That's what I have control of. And so if I'm waiting for my spouse to meet me halfway, then we'll be waiting until Jesus comes back. Somebody's got to go first. Somebody's got to go first and say, you know what? If the Lord's trying to grow and change me and these terrible circumstances in my marriage, I'm going to say yes to that. I'm going to stop trying to scrape out of my spouse my needs. I'm going to stop trying to scrape out of my circumstances what I need because it's not working. I've got to try something different at this point. And I put my money on it. The things I'm suggesting today, you probably have never heard. Might sound a little crazy. But, trying something different can be just the thing you've been waiting for to say, you know what? This is crazy enough that I just might try it because it just might work. And yeah, there's a season where this part's challenging, but the season that it leads to is a season where your marriage can be enjoyable, where you guys can be with each other and know, I love the differences between us. I love how you're different from me. It shows me a picture of who God is outside of me. It's like God split his personality and put half of it in my spouse and put half of it in me. And I get to experience who God is through looking into your eyes. What a privilege. What an amazing experience. And so when I'm able to get to this point where I'm appreciating the differences in my spouse, where my needs, I'm not placing 2,000 pounds on my spouse's shoulders, and if they don't meet it, I'm ready to make them pay. As long as that's the environment in our marriage, we will never have a loving, intimate marriage. It'll always be a trade. And I'll say this is a terrible story, so I shouldn't tell it. But I realized that, I used to clean the kitchen and clean the living room, hoping that my wife would see that that's what I was doing. Because if I did, then she'd say, oh my gosh, because that's what all the YouTubes and all the reels say is if your spouse sees you cleaning up and helping around the house, they will just not be able to help wanting to get together with you, have a little intimate time. And so I'm cleaning up the living room and the kitchen. I'm doing the dishes by hand, I'm like, and just, waiting, making sure she comes around. Like, I don't want to just do it for myself. If she's not around, doesn't see it. And so, she'd come around, she'd see it. And my thought would be, oh, she's definitely going to want me. And so, I realized, and this sounds crazy, but I realized this unconditional concept, if it doesn't exist in your marriage, your culture will be all messed up. So what I didn't realize is that what I was trying to do is I was trying to do actions to earn sex with my wife. I was trying to pay for sex with my wife. And my wife hated that. I didn't realize it until later that she's like, you really think I want you to pretend to be my partner for one day a week so that you can have my body? But the rest of the time, you don't want to be my partner. The rest of the time, I feel like all the weight of what goes on in our house falls on my shoulders. The rest of the time, I'm wondering if my heart feels safe with you and if you want to talk to me about me, or like I have to wonder all of that. And you think one night of you doing some dishes, what is paying for what, And so when I realized that, my wife and I did this crazy thing and we decided to have a sex fast, which was crazy. It was crazy. And I'll talk about that on another one of these. But that made a huge difference in our marriage, a huge difference where now my wife and I, our sex is no longer connected to our treatment of each other. It's not connected to how we're sharing the chores and who's doing what or whatever. It's something that has shifted to, it's a regular rhythm that we build in our relationship, a system. We used to have it on our calendar and we came up with a system. We talked about and agreed on it. And when that became disconnected and the sex was just something that would be consistent, and then we built in the conversations would be consistent. Once we built that in, it actually took the pressure off of us to perform. And we actually got to start to build a relationship that didn't start struggling every 3 days when it's a sex day. And instead, it got to continue to build because of the unconditional nature of us loving each other. And so there's a lot to share in here, and there's a lot to build on, but I want you to stop the bleeding. And I want, if you're open to it and you're in a place where you're like, man, my marriage needs some help right now. I have 2 spots for couples who want to start the process of making their marriage better than ever. And so I'd love to have a conversation with you to see if you're a good fit to start now. I've got something I've got going on right now where there's some people who feel like they need kind of a build up where it's like, hey, we need to do some preparation before we're ready to work on our marriage problems. And I've got an offer for you for that as well. For the people who need a little bit of a ramp up where it's like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm ready for us to come up with a shared goal and blaze toward it together just yet. But we're both committed to working on our marriage. We need a little bit of help to get to the place where we're doing it together. So I've got some space for one couple who wants to do that. And then I've got 2 spaces for couples who are like, nope, we're ready. We realize our marriage isn't where we want it to be. And we don't need to wait another week, another month, another year in order to decide whether or not now's the time to say, I would like to take a different approach that's not like therapy. I would like to take a different approach where we're not talking in circles about our issues. And instead, we're working on the core issue. If we work on the core issue and we're able to build systems that actually keep us at a level of having a good marriage, then, we'll be able to work on all the other stuff along the way. And it'll be easy to work on instead of right now, which is everything's an issue. It's not about the trash. That's something I love to say. We're arguing about the trash. We both know it's not about the trash. It's about something else. And we don't figure out what the core is underneath that. we're going to be arguing about the trash for the rest of our lives. Or we're going to try to escape. Say, I'll never argue with this person about the trash again. I'm getting out of here. And so there's hope for you. If you're in a place where your marriage is low on hope, high on frustration, high on struggle, that is the place where the Lord wants to meet you and do a radical miracle in your marriage, the kind that you literally would feel like you have to tell everybody about. And I want you to be a part of that. So thank you guys for showing up. If anybody's got any questions or anything, if you can drop them in the chat, and I'll sit in here for another minute or so. But yeah, thank you guys for showing up, and I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you in your marriages. Like, God is looking at where you are, and he's like, man, this is the place where I do my best work. Where there's this struggle where they're like, man, I'm not giving up, but what the heck do I do with where I am? I don't like that we don't like each other. I don't like that we're constantly negotiating about getting our needs met. That's not, Christian marriages should be the greatest relationships on the planet. And that's not the reality. And I am committed to changing that, doing the best I can with the life I have. And so I want you guys to come with me. So if you guys have any questions or thoughts or anything, what stuck out to you, please throw it in the comments. There'll be other people coming after you that'll look and might be encouraged by the comment you throw in there or by the question and say, that's exactly the question that I have. So, but yeah, I'll sit here for a minute, and if anybody's got any questions, I'll be here to answer them. Hey, Desiree, did you request to jump on here with me? You can type a comment to say yes or no. I've never gone live from my phone before. I feel like the camera quality is better, so I wanted to try that. But if that's what you were requesting to do, I'll let you in. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great night. And if anybody's interested, if you feel that tug on your heart that this is the time, let me know. Reach out, shoot me a DM, or even add a comment to this live if that's something you're interested in. And we'll just start a conversation to see where you're at. And we'll go from there. But all right, guys, you have a great night. I'll see you.